All right, we are right at the hour, so we can begin. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Based on what I analyzed for the registration panel today, we will have a smaller audience, and I think most of you are actually attending the OpenLM webinar for the first time. So I have adjusted my presentation a little bit to focus on showcasing some of the points that I am going to talk about. For this year, this is my second to last webinar. And you should know that for next year, we are actually preparing a little bit of a different structure. We will focus more on talking about the product on one hand, and on the other hand, talk a little bit about what we are planning on our managed service portfolio. So without further ado, let us begin. The presentation will be probably a little bit shorter than compared to what you are used to, because I really want to showcase the product a little bit, illustrate the key points that I'm going to try and make. So let me begin. Software asset management for engineering applications. What are the key topics that I want to talk about a little bit? So the first is, of course, software asset management, the current buzzword in the industry. To that is tied the shortened acronym ELP, effective license position. If you've been living in the SAM world, you know what this means. Then compare the standard SAM to the engineering SAM world. What are the differences and how OpenLM actually can help you accommodate those? Do a showcase and talk a little bit about the future license models for engineering that we see are becoming to the forefront. The world is changing with what the Corona crisis did to overall landscape of the IT and the engineering world, and finalize it with what OpenLM is actually trying to offer as a managed service on the SAM for engineering forefront. So let me begin. You have probably heard a lot about software asset management in the recent world. So it has become an integral part of asset management overall, and most of the companies are now realizing that managing the software assets is equally as important as managing the hardware assets. When they look at their budgets, look at what is the key spender, they can see that those software vendors are popping right at the top, because software is becoming more and more expensive. The licensing is becoming more and more complicated, not even year by year, but probably month by month. All the big vendors are trying different things, different models. So not managing your software assets at all is a big mistake. And it's a big mistake for multiple reasons, which I'm going to delve into in my another slide. When a SAM is being implemented in a company, from experience, I can tell you that it usually starts to look at the key spenders in the software. And these are usually the standard key players in the world. So of course, what I'm showcasing in my example, but these are by no means the only ones: Microsoft, IBM, and Oracle. And once the process of the SAM is more integrated into the company, the SAM managers or even the higher level management actually starts delving deeper into the problematic, maybe trying to analyze more and more software vendors, because in the end, you know, every dollar counts at the end of the year, and managing the software spend, it is really, really key. So to software asset management is tied one keyword, and that is called effective license position. And again, it has been a standard measurement that's been happening in the SAM world for many, many years now. And it is focused always on two things. So on one hand, we have the cost optimization, which is of course the obvious one, because we don't want to pay more for the licenses that we have than we actually need. But at the same time, we want to ensure that we are compliant. And compliance is something that I like to call a hidden cost, because it is not immediately apparent. And especially with the standard IT contracts, like something you get from Microsoft or Oracle, it is very easy to become non-compliant, because nobody is actually checking the amount of installation. And effective license position is always a comparison between what you have, what you are entitled to, which is the entitlement that goes on one hand, and on the other hand is the deployment, what you are actually consuming, how many installations you have, how many cores you are consuming for your server products. And this is very important to keep a perfect, maybe not 100% perfect, but close to perfect balance between these two, to make sure that you are not overpaying, but at the same time, you are also not overusing, because once an audit happens, you may find yourself in a trouble. Now, this is the standard world of the standard IT applications, of the standard IT contracts. But how does that actually tie into the engineering world? Because if you've been living in the engineering world as well, you know that the licensing models are a little bit different. And they are different. They use different licensing models. You compare different parameters, but the effective license position, even though it looks a little bit different, it is still the way to go. You are still trying to measure what you own on one hand and what you are actually utilizing on the other hand. But for the utilization, you are not really looking at the deployment, because especially with the still prevalent network licensing models that are being used in the engineering world, it doesn't really matter how many installations you have, but what matters is actually how many launches of the particular application are being active at the same time, and how many licenses you are consuming. And this is just one parameter, and there are others that go into the equation, because we know what is usually happening in the engineering world, where all the engineers are hard pushed to deliver on their projects. They need to utilize the products on a day-to-day basis. And in many cases, maybe the company does not have enough licenses. So there tends to be some misuse or abuse of licenses that happen. And in here, again, a proper tool, a proper measurement system that you can get also with OpenLM is important, because we know that sometimes the engineers, they don't shut down the applications, or they leave their workstations running, which means that you are actively consuming licenses that could have been used by somebody else. So another parameter that goes into the equation when you are trying to build an effective license position, and is something that we are proud to be able to deliver with OpenLM, is actually looking at whether the application is active utilization, whether the user at the endpoint is actually working with it, or it's just idling maybe on the back end. Maybe the user is browsing the internet, working with some other application, or went out for a coffee, or just completely left the premises and this is now at home, but the application is still running. So this what we call idle time is an important parameter when you are trying to build an effective license position for your engineering licenses. And on top of that, very nifty functionality that's called license harvesting, that can actually even remotely disable the user's application, saving the work and providing license back to the pool so somebody else can use it. The good thing with the network licensing model is that you really cannot use more than you have for, especially when you have concurrent licenses. The system, the license manager, is designed in a way that you are not able to launch more than you have. But that doesn't mean that in the engineering SAM world, we are not also focusing on compliance. Because what I was talking about up until now was more focused on the cost optimization perspective, making sure that the licenses are properly utilized. You don't use more than you have. You don't buy more than you actually need. You can save some money on that. And also, on the other hand, you don't have engineers not being able to take licenses because you don't have enough and just sitting there idling, which is also a cost that is basically just wasted money. But the compliance is equally as important when it comes to engineering somewhat. It's just presented in a different way, because like we established, you cannot use more than you have, but the vendors usually sell these engineering licenses with a certain usage scope, certain contractual obligations that are usually defined in the contracts. And these can be multiple things at the same time. It can be a contractual obligation that defines your license is only valid for a certain region, a certain country. Maybe the vendor is measuring the location of your users. Maybe the vendor is measuring the locations of the machines where the software is actually installed and running. Maybe you are only entitled to use the licenses for your internal employees and not for your contractors. Maybe you are allowed to do both. These are all the tricky parts that actually need to be carefully measured, and you need to make sure that whenever an audit comes, you can report properly. And again, OpenLM can help you, and I'm going to demonstrate a little bit how to make sure that you are abiding by these rules that the vendors actually set forward for you. So let's do a quick showcase. Let me grab a drink. Thank you. And now I'm actually going to switch to the OpenLM interface and showcase very quickly within like 5 minutes, so I don't overburden you, how you can actually test some of these issues and do some of these reports directly within the interface of our product. So what you are looking at is actually an encrypted installation of a database that we've gotten from one of our customers. So that's why you are seeing these different letters in here instead of real host names. As you can see, the solution can actually scale way high up. In this case, we are actually monitoring 205 license servers within the same installation of OpenLM. So whether you are a small company, you are a medium-sized company, or you are a big corporation, you can utilize our tool and scale it to basically accommodate all your engineering license portfolio. I'm going to showcase only a few of the reports that we deliver, but they should demonstrate the ability of what we just discussed. One of the first key reports that we have is what we call a license usage report, and it's a very simple interface, a very simple graph that showcases you the particular quantity of licenses that you own, which is represented by this line that I have on top of that, and the peak utilization as it happens over the course of day over a certain time period. So in this case, you can already directly see that for this license, it's actually utilized pretty well, because you can see it's reaching the peak, but it's not staying at the peak for so long. So the prospect of having too many denials, too many engineers that cannot work is not really there. But at the same time, you don't have way too many licenses, so you would be overpaying your solution. And this can actually be arranged in this interface with a simple click. As you can see, I'm just filtering this for one server and for a particular feature, which is AutoCAD Mechanical, which we usually use for our demonstration. In the same way, we do provide a heat map report, which can again showcase you the distribution, the license utilization over a certain period of time. And in here, with the graphical representation from the green portions where you see only few licenses are utilized overnight. As we move on towards the beginning of the day, you see that people start coming to work, they start to take the licenses, and then you can see again as it dies out as the primary shift is finished. Of course, this graph can vary a little bit depending. You may have global licenses that are actually being utilized 24/7, and you can also see already some outliers, some pointers in here that can raise your attention. You can see that even though 4th and 5th is Saturday and Sunday, you still have a certain amount of people that are actually taking the license. Now, this can already tell you that, of course, there is always the case that the engineers actually might be at work and they are actively doing something, but it can also tell you that maybe something is happening, that the people just leave, like I said at the beginning, the people can leave the workstations open, they leave the products running, they basically keep taking the licenses even though they shouldn't have. So with a very simple report, you can already see some numbers, you can see some graphical representation, and you can already see some data if you are experienced in the field that can indicate that something is actually wrong with how your users utilize the license portfolio. Now, I was also talking a little bit about compliance, and for the demonstration of the compliance, let's assume that we have an installation where my users for this particular license server and this particular application are located in the United States, and I have purchased the licenses with the usage scope that clearly defines that they should only be used in the United States area. Now, I can create a grouping system in OpenLM. Again, you can see that these groups are actually hashed. So I'm sorry, I'm showing users. So I'm going to filter here by groups. Now, I can see that my licenses are being used by about 28 different groups, which in the system, the grouping system can be customized to whatever you require. You can customize it by countries or by different departments, by different site locations. Now, for the purpose of the demonstration, I'm going to say that group number 167 is not located in the US. I know that in this group, I have users that are actually located in Europe, in Germany. Now, with the simple filtering, I'm going to add the group to this filter. I can apply it, and I already see that even though my users from group 167 are located in Europe, in Germany, they are still taking my US licenses. So I can immediately, with a simple click, identify that I have a problem because I am non-compliant. I am basically interfering with the contractual obligations that were defined to me by the vendor. And if the vendor comes to audit me, I am in trouble. At the same time, let's put the compliance aside and focus on the cost optimization. If I'm grouping my OpenLM system by departments, and I want to see how much of the licenses are being used by that particular department, again, I can do the same thing. I can just add the group filter here and immediately see that these users from these departments are utilizing my licenses in a certain way. Let's move a little bit further. So this was a nice graphical representation of some historical graphs of what's been happening with my licenses, but maybe I actually want to dive a little bit deeper. I want to identify the bigger problems that I have with my licenses. I want to see what the users are actually doing. How long are they working with their systems? How long are they utilizing the licenses? So a simple report that we call license activity is actually allows you to showcase all the different sessions for the user. So I can see the name, I can see the email address, I can see the workstation where the license was picked up, and I can see the start time and I can see the end time. And again, I can also see the grouping system. I can group these users I can group the utilization by groups. I can group the total utilization by users. I can group it by different license servers. I can group it by vendor, and I can group it by project. Now, as you can see, if I am grouping the utilization now by users, and when I highlight it, so I can see what is happening, you see most of the users are only using the software for a couple of hours, but then I can see that somebody has been using it for a very long time. Again, this can identify some misuse or abuse of the licenses that can be happening. Maybe a person is running more instances of the same product at the same time, which again probably shouldn't be allowed because you don't want to spend other licenses. You don't want to spend other licenses. You want to have the license assigned to the particular user. You don't want him to run 3-4 instances of the product and prevent somebody else work. So these are some very quick and easy ways for you to just utilize the OpenLM frontend and immediately see some gaps, some areas where you can get some more out of your licenses. You can reduce your licenses to get further costs, and you can check out the compliance and immediately see if there are problems. Let me tell you, this is just the beginning, and this is why I chose this presentation today, because I've seen that there are not many of the regular people that join the webinar. So I wanted to showcase you very quickly in 5 minutes how easy it is with OpenLM to actually just look at what's happening in your company and get some quick wins. Of course, there is a lot more to the software, and you can get a lot more by diving deeper into the data analytics, optimizing your licenses further. We do offer quality of service reports where you can see how many licenses you need to achieve a certain quality of service, but that is actually part of another webinar. Now, let me continue a little bit and talk about the future of the licensing models for engineering. We have seen in the recent years, and especially since the Corona crisis started in the world, and people started to move more from a world where everybody was sitting on premise, sitting on the company network, working their daily shift, taking the licenses as they were used to, more to a world where now more and more end users are sitting at home and just connecting to the company network, or maybe in many cases for some of the vendors, some of the applications, like we can see what Autodesk is doing with their new subscription model, with the named user cloud-based licensing model, where you are not even required anymore to actually be connected to the company network to be able to utilize the company software. So this is what is happening. This is where the world is going. Another big pointer in here is the word cloud. We hear it over and over, whether it's applications moving to the cloud, license servers moving to the cloud. Many of the vendors now allow you to either basically take your license server and put it on a cloud-based solution to Amazon hosted or Microsoft Azure hosted, or just host it directly by the vendor. And this creates more and more problems in the world of trying to actually keep the license portfolio together, to keep your overview of what is happening. And for this, we of course also have a solution. We are trying to keep the pace with where the world is going. We are preparing to live in a world where the network licensing will be on decline. We do have a solution that can be installed directly on the end users' workstations and still provide you insight into what is actually happening. And we will actually be able to deliver on that even more. As I said at the beginning, this is the second to last webinar for this year regarding managing engineering applications. For next year, we are preparing a completely new structure to talk about the new products that we are developing, to actually showcase you how we are trying to align with where the engineering licensing world is going. Now, allow me to talk a little bit about OpenLM as a service provider, as a managed service provider. We do understand that the engineering applications are of critical value, even if this may not have been the case some years to the past, where the SAM managers were still focusing only on the core IT contracts. But very quickly they realized that, you know, a company like Dassault or Siemens can actually be a very significant percentage of your software spending. So more and more resources is being put into making sure that the engineering applications are properly monitored. And we already have a perfect tool that is suited to not just monitor, but to also manage these engineering applications remotely. And we believe there is huge merit in not just taking the report once a year, but periodically analyzing what is actually happening at your premises. It's what I try to showcase very quickly with the short reporting session, is that it's not about just the renewal date and looking at the utilization 12 months back or 6 months back and making sure that you can maybe reduce your software contract a little bit, but doing periodical analysis all the time. Doesn't need to really have to be every day, but as frequently as possible, automate this reporting functionality, see what is happening, make sure that there are no outliers, there aren't users who take more licenses than they're supposed to, that there are no users that leave their workstations open, leave their software running, because ultimately, over the course of 1-2 days, you don't really see that much of a difference. But if you calculate the value, the cost that could have been lost over the course of a year by just 5 to 10 people who don't turn off their software and are hogging licenses that could have been used by somebody else, you can find at the end of the year that you got a pretty huge number that, again, could have been translated into a cost optimization, into a cost saving. And the compliance, again, equally as important, even though as I explained, the deployment to entitlement value is not very important. It's the usage scope or other infringements that matter. We can know that this is a problem. We know how to work with our tool to actually help you reduce the risk. And we know that cost reduction is the driving force for the company. So we are really there to not just bring our product forward, but we also want to help you get a managed service. If you are in a position that you don't have the internal resources to work with OpenLM or to work with analyzing your license portfolio, we would like to try actually and get into this business and help you out. So what do we offer is a full-on software asset management for engineering applications, starting from deploying our tool, configuring our tool, making sure that all the software that you care about is covered, is properly administered remotely, is being reported on demand and periodically. And we also do offer a creation of what I call the effective license positions report for the engineering applications, help you analyze the data, pinpoint the compliance issues, and offer some insights on cost reduction. As I said, there will be a fully dedicated webinar starting probably in January 2022, where we will talk in detail about all these different points that I just outlined here. With that, I have spoken for long enough. I would like to give you guys a chance to ask me anything. So there is a QA panel on the Zoom meeting that you can utilize, or if somebody is actually interested to talk directly, we can open up the chat as well. So let me know. I'm going to enable the talk button for everybody. If somebody wants to join me and ask directly. You are welcome to do so, and I will also answer the questions in the chat. Just give me a second here. So we have a question from an anonymous attendee. Can license harvesting work for any application? It cannot work for any application. Look, in theory, if the application is based on FlexLM, you can actually create the harvesting pretty simply because the FlexLM almost natively supports it. But we do have some key applications that we support natively right out of the bat. For example, Autodesk, MATLAB, SolidWorks. We have a save and close functionality for license harvesting for CATIA, which is our latest addition. But what we know from our customers, and you need to understand that we are again in OpenLM working with a little bit limited resources, so we haven't had time to actually test, and there are maybe 4,000 or 5,000 different engineering applications. But for the key players, we are trying to implement this functionality, and we know that some of our customers actually did portion of the work themselves because our agent solution does allow you to remotely, based on certain predefined thresholds, actually execute a script on the workstation. So it is possible to script almost anything. Let me answer a question from Andrew. Andrew, does the OpenLM cloud version of now support the OpenLM agent? Last time I spoke with sales, I could only use the license manager plugin. So the official release of the agent is targeted by the end of the year. We do have a working solution now internally, and we are in the process of QA testing it, making sure that it's actually up to the task the same way as the on-premise agent, and it should be released by the end of this year. I hope that answered the question. So it's internally, we already have it working. We haven't officially released it yet, but it's coming. How can you capture purchase software information in OpenLM? So if you are talking about actually loading the entitlements, where you, based on the SKU and your quotation, also know the cost, this cannot be directly achieved by OpenLM, but we do have a partnership with ServiceNow, and the partnership, one of the main reasons for this partnership is that you can actually, if you have the ServiceNow STEM IT Pro, you can combine it with OpenLM, where we provide the license utilization data, and the ServiceNow platform provides the entitlements that you can load and have the software information and all the costs tied to it directly there. Or we do have another alternative solution that we built in internally, which is called OpenLM Reporting Hub. And this is basically a business intelligence solution that takes the data from the OpenLM database. You can connect it with any BI tool of your choosing, and also, of course, plug in another set of data. So it is possible for you to add the cost data and the purchase information this way as well. So I assume that you are asking about alter hypermesh, suspend and resume. I can honestly tell you we never tested that, but we can add it to our portfolio and then play around with it. It is possible. We know a lot of our customers use alter hypermesh, but we never investigated the option to do the suspend and resume or save and close functionality on this particular application. Now let me move to Akshun. Does the solution support analysis of software like ANSYS and MSC? Yes. You can go to our page. I just open it directly for you. So we are not really tying this into an analysis of application, but we look at supported license manager. So MSC is usually running by FlexLM, the standard FlexNet licensing publisher system that's been the industry standard for a long, long time. And as you can see, there are a lot more that are supported here. So basically anything that you find that is running on any of these license managers is supported natively by the tool directly. I can tell you ANSYS is one of the primary applications that our customers actually utilize OpenLM to do the analysis for. I'm going to ask the question from chat now. What access does OpenLM require for proper functioning of the license harvesting? So as you can imagine, for the license harvesting to actually properly function, you need to have an endpoint. user's workstation where the application is actually running. So, and we do this with an extension that we call the OpenLM agent. This extension is running on the endpoint. You define the process, like let's say you want to look at AutoCAD harvesting. So you define the acad.exe process in the OpenLM interface. And then the agent is basically running on the backend of the workstation. It is monitoring whether the application is active, and you can set the thresholds for the activity, or you can also set the thresholds for the utilization rate of the license. And if the agent detects that the threshold has been reached, then it can suspend the application on the backend and return the license back to the pool. Leonardo, yes, but I think the question was actually tied directly to whether we can also do the license harvesting on Alter Hypermesh. Like you can monitor Alter Hypermesh, of course. You know, it's again the Alter License Manager is just a customized version of the LMX License Manager, which is one of the ones that we do support natively. How would you handle online licensing portal to monitor usage? I'm not sure if I completely understand the question, but if you are talking about a web-based application, then it's one of the features that is actually coming with OpenLM, and it will probably be officially. It's basically already part of the new agent that we developed for our new version, but we haven't had a chance to actually properly distribute it on a webinar session. This new agent does allow you to monitor URLs, predefined URLs directly in the browsers of the end user workstation. So if you want to just track a utilization of an application that is running on a web portal, you can already do that with this agent. Again, bear in mind the requirement is that the agent is of course running on the end user workstation. And you can define the URL, and basically you can see all the session information the same way as you would have seen session for any other engineering application. If you are asking whether we can actually load the entitlement of an online licensing portal into OpenLM, like for example, for the Autodesk cloud licensing system that they pushed recently, where you don't have a license server anymore, but each license is a named user license, and the user just logs in into their AutoCAD, and the license is consumed from the licensing portal. Then we do support this for Autodesk, we do support it for Microsoft Office 365, and we are investigating other options of how to actually expand this. In this case, of course, if you want to monitor an application that doesn't have a centralized licensing system, and you just don't want to see whether the user has the license allocated or hasn't the license allocated, you want to actually see whether the user is actively using the application, then again, the OpenLM agent is required to be installed at the endpoint. Like this is one of the key hurdles that we are now facing when we look at the world that is trying to move, at least for some of the vendors, from the centralized network licensing system, where we can just get a broker installed on the license server license manager and just take all the utilization data, to a world where each application is individually installed but is not consuming a centralized license. We need a way, we need a system, we need the program that is running on the endpoint, which is the OpenLM agent, that can actually track the utilization. But from the perspective of the OpenLM front end, you can see the usage one way or another in the same manner. You can see the peak graph. If you define your license entitlement, you can see peak graph, you can see all the sessions, you can see everything. I do hope that I answered the question. Yeah, thank you, Leonardo. I always appreciate your help. So another question, could it potentially alert highlight if users leave the company that licenses are not being used, maybe even remove them from the license server? So now this depends, because if you have a concurrent network license server, you don't really remove the licenses. We are, oh, you mean like Autodesk portal, ArcGIS or Bluebeam portal. It's very nice that you actually asked this question. And again, you will see a fully dedicated webinar to a product that we are developing, which will is not part of the OpenLM core. It will be its own standalone product, where it's precisely what we want to do. We want to have a system And it's actually an extension of something that was originally part of OpenLM. It's what we called the directory synchronization. So originally, OpenLM had this functionality bundled in together. And the purpose was pretty simple, to just basically go ahead, take the Active Directory and synchronize your users, but we would like to see a product. We would like, now it's a standalone product where it's basically doing the directory synchronization as standalone product. Where we want to go with this is to actually be able to, on one hand, check the Active Directory or any other directory of your choosing and compare the status of the user with the portal, like the Autodesk portal that you are mentioning in your question. By the way, we are implementing this for Autodesk. We want to do it for Microsoft Azure DevOps. We want to do it for many further cloud-based subscriptions. If you are interested in that, feel free to actually talk to me or approach OpenLM support, and we can work out a solution together. Again, I hope that answered your question. If there is anything else, is OpenLM licensed? Yes, it's licensed. You can either go with a perpetual license and pay yearly maintenance, or you can go with the subscription based, or you can also utilize our OpenLM Cloud, which basically it's not licensed per endpoint right now. It's licensed per vendor daemon. So if you want to monitor Autodesk, that is from our perspective one vendor daemon, and the amount of users that actually utilize the engineering application. So if you have 100 users for AutoCAD or Autodesk, that's from our perspective, that's one vendor and 100 users. But I'd be happy to hook you up with our sales department where they can tell you more about how it's licensed. We also do offer a 30-day trial, or if you are more interested, we also do offer to go with the POC. I'm sorry, that is fully supported by us. Okay, I'll leave it open for a couple more minutes. If there is anybody else that wants to ask something, you know, I'm here, guys. Feel free to shoot it my way. And if not, we'll close the session in 1-2 minutes. Yes, of course, if we are talking about a POC, that's a bigger company, that it can take more than 30 days. But this is more a sales question where if you are interested, you know, feel free to approach us at sales@openlm.com or support@openlm.com, and we can discuss all the details outside the webinar session. We understand that there are oh yeah, of course, I understand that. I'm sorry, you're just showing as anonymous attendee, so I don't see the name, but we would be more than happy to speak to you to do a demonstration, showcase the functionality, and then if you decide to move with the POC, just go ahead. And I really liked your query about basically the synchronization between directory and the cloud-based services. So that's something that we really want to do. So we would be glad to work together. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, everybody, for listening. As I said at the beginning, this year was transformative for us, and we do hope to deliver more and more varied webinars over the course of next year. So stay tuned. I wish everybody a nice morning, evening, afternoon, whenever you are located, and The recording will be probably, we can make it available on our webpage if you subject. Can you please ping me with an email at Branislav? I'm just going to write it here. I send you my direct contact. Please approach me after the webinar is done, and we can set and share the session. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Have a great day.